Hello, I'm Jodie Benveniste, a psychologist and a parenting author, and I help parents get to the true heart of parenting. In this video, we're going to talk about parenting styles and which parenting style works best for children. We know from research that parenting is really important for children's outcomes. In fact, the neuroscience literature really shows us that the relationships our children have when they're growing up and their environment have a big impact on their growth and development. We also know from research that there is a parenting style that is best for children. We can actually divide parenting styles into 4 main categories. It might be that you use one or more of these different parenting styles at different times, but you also might have a dominant parenting style that you rely on, particularly if you're tired or stressed. The authoritarian parenting style offers children lots of structure and boundaries and discipline. Children who grow up with the authoritarian parenting style can be quite obedient, but they can also lack self-worth and not necessarily have great well-being. And that's because this parenting style can be a little bit too harsh and lack a bit of warmth and love. The authoritarian parenting style doesn't allow children to make their own decisions. Parents really want them to obey, to do as I say, because I told you so. They tend to focus more on punishment than guiding and teaching their children good behaviour. They can also parent based on their mood and can fly off the handle rather than parenting based on the situation or what their child's done. And at school they can have really high expectations of their children, but sometimes they don't really offer the love and support the children need to do really well at school. With the authoritarian parenting style, children might be obedient and they might do what you say, but they also might fear you, which creates a disconnect between you and your child and isn't based on that loving relationship that we really want to have with them. Authoritarian parents don't always take into account their child's temperament or their child's stage of development. So they might have unrealistic expectations of their behaviour. They might expect a 5-year-old to do something that they're not capable of doing until they're at least 12. And then they may punish the child because they haven't done what they've asked them to do. But really, that child does not yet have the developmental skills they need to be able to do what their parents ask them. With the permissive parenting style, it's almost the opposite of the authoritarian style. So parents who are permissive are very warm and loving and affectionate and very responsive to their children, but they don't always provide the guidance and the structure and the boundaries that kids really need to learn discipline and good behaviour. Permissive parents might give in to their children. So if their child gets upset because they want another chocolate biscuit, a permissive parent will just give them another biscuit. Permissive parents aren't always great at setting consequences and following through with actions. So they may say that a child's only allowed to have an hour of screen time, but then when it comes to the end of that hour, they don't follow through. Permissive parents don't always teach their child about how their own behaviour, their child's behaviour might be impacting others. So their child might hit or snatch or bite another child, and they don't intervene and then teach their child how to behave in a more appropriate way. Permissive parents don't always take into account their child's temperament or their stage of development, and they don't necessarily realise that children really do need those boundaries and structures at every developmental stage so that they can progress through those milestones and help their growth and development. Children who grow up with permissive parents can feel loved, but they can also lack self-discipline because they've never been taught discipline. They can lack those social skills about how to play well with others, and they can sometimes also be a bit anxious and insecure because parents haven't set up those boundaries for them. And when it comes to school, they may lack the structure and the focus and the boundaries that kids really need to be able to do well in their education. The disengaged parenting style combines the lack of love and warmth of the authoritarian parent and also the lack of discipline and structure of the permissive parent. Disengaged parents take little interest in their children and they don't really provide the guidance and boundaries and structure that children need to learn. Disengaged parents might attend to their child's basic needs, but they won't necessarily meet their child's deeper needs. They tend to be a little bit more engrossed in their own life and their own needs, and they can sometimes be neglectful. They don't always provide the structure that children really need, like it's time to go to bed now, and it's time to do your homework, and it's time to cook a good meal and sit down and eat together. And they don't always provide the love and warmth, the affection, the cuddles the kids really need to thrive. Children who grow up with disengaged parents can be socially withdrawn because they haven't learnt those social skills. They can be quite anxious and insecure because they haven't had the boundaries they need. They can also be out and about getting into trouble and hanging out with the wrong crowds and skipping school because they don't have someone looking out for them and supervising them and providing the guidance they really need. At school, their parents probably have very low expectations of them achieving, but also of even attending, which means the kids may be at school or they may not be. Disengaged parents aren't always there to help with their children with their homework, supervising how they're going, and really helping them to succeed at school. The parenting style that's best for children is the supportive style. It's a style where you're warm and you're loving and you're affectionate, but you also create structure and boundaries for your children, and you guide their behaviour. You don't focus on punishment, you focus on guiding and teaching and helping them to learn good behaviour. Supportive parents really listen to their children, they ask them questions, they look at life from their point of view, they explain things, they have discussions, they allow their children into decision making. Supportive parents also allow their kids to grow and learn themselves. They let them gain independence and skills. They don't do everything for their children. We need to actually help our children to learn for themselves rather than being overprotective and doing everything for them. Supportive parents set boundaries, they follow through with consequences, and they do it pretty consistently, or as consistently as possible, because that's how children learn. They learn much more quickly the more consistent we are. Supportive parents are flexible, and when they're parenting, they really take into account the situation, their child's temperament, their child's stage of development, so that they can really be guiding their children's behaviour and making the right decisions at the time. Supportive parents really encourage children to have a go, take risks, and even make mistakes. And the best thing to do is to actually help children learn from those mistakes. So go through what happened, how they can do things better, and what they can learn from the situation. Children who grow up with supportive parents are self-confident, they feel capable, they're emotionally mature, they've got good social skills, and they enjoy better happiness and well-being, which really sets them well up for adulthood. And at school, they are really well supported, loved, and have the structures in place to try their best and to really achieve. Our parenting does really matter. We can have a really strong, positive, wonderful influence on our children's outcomes. So what's best for children? It's about being warm and loving and setting those boundaries and guiding their behaviour, and most of all enjoying your relationship, because really that's what parenting is all about, developing a strong and loving relationship with your child.